So far, mechanics pulling apart this old jumbo have given it a facelift, brain surgery, and a tummy tuck. Hundreds of kilograms have been shed, and this work pays for itself. They've put an estimated $6.5 million worth of parts back on the market. It's the first 747 they've ever tackled, but they know the real heavy lifting is about to begin. The wings of this 747 are massive structures, weighing over 20,000 kilograms each. You could park 22 medium-sized cars on the surface of just one. These wings have flown their last flight, but the devices that control the flaps are precious components called actuators. 2 major actuators sit in each wing. 4 more control the tail flaps, and 2 for the rudder. They weigh up to 90 kilograms each and are among the largest pieces the crew must remove. It's a daunting and dangerous mission 3 stories above the ground, and these mechanics have never dealt with actuators this big. The crew takes up position above and below a tail flap. To reach the actuator, they must first hoist up the flap. Problem is, it weighs 250 kilograms.
Okay, Howard. Let her down, Howard. Are you going to come back this way, the waves? I'm going to be able to hold it. Okay.
The team hustles to force the actuator out, but it won't budge.
Okay, Willie. Yeah. You need to help me hold this for a little bit. Hold on, little rope. Or can you hold it for a second?
Yeah. Someone must hold up the tail flap while the struggle continues.
Just gotta come faster.
Brackets in the tail obstruct the actuator's path. They must somehow work around the brackets without damaging the actuator itself.
This paper should carry a little bit of roll in it. Yeah, this out. You gotta come on if I move.
You all right? Hey, let's rest a little bit, okay?
They reposition for a better angle under the tail.
All right, onto it. We're gonna go all the way up again. Okay, ready? All right, there. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. Now we're gonna try. Can you pull it up a little?
Either way would work.
And continue the fight by working on their knees. Then, another serious setback. Lyle is sprayed by an airplane mechanic's worst nightmare, skydroll.
This got doused with skydroll.
Skydroll is the hydraulic fluid that courses through the veins of the aircraft. It's a toxic sludge that burns and can temporarily blind.
Shortly, it'll start burning. It's tough. And it won't stop until you clean it off.
Skydroll in the eyes is like getting pepper sprayed, but a whole lot worse.
Working through the burn is not an option.
Hey, Willie, you want to work on that? I got to put some castor oil on my face. It's starting to burn.
So Lyle must temporarily abandon his colleagues. Castor oil neutralizes skydroll's burn.
This around here.
And it's back to work.
Got about 2 inches. Come on.
I'm gonna need help pushing it all the way up, and then I'll try to hold it.
With one last heave of the tail flap, they finally pry the 90-kilogram actuator free.
Be careful, Lyle. All right, Howard. Let it down a little.
Okay. Let it down, Howard. Glad that's done.
The grueling removal is a lesson learned for the next actuator, and the 8 more after that.
All right, Howard, you got it?
They remove the rest in half the time and with half the muscle.
All right, down.
We're bringing them down.
Come on down.
Hold on. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Watch your door.
Each large actuator is worth between $5,000 and $10,000. They remove 10 of them for a total of roughly $80,000. But they are still $100,000 away from their goal. And crunch time is near. The Jumbo now sits in full view of its fate. Across the way, an MD-80 gets crushed into scrap metal. All of its reusable parts have been salvaged, and anything left gets handed over to Julio Estrada from the Alameda Metals Scrapping Company. Julio's scrapper blade crushes with 90,000 kilograms of pressure.
I like my job. Just destroy, take the airplanes apart.
It takes 2 days to turn a plane like this into a pile of metal. But the MD-80, as big as it is just a warm-up compared to the giant 747. A plane's remains may look like garbage, but they'll give this heap of scrap another shot at life. Drivers take the metal to the Allied Metal Company in Chicago, where it's melted down. The challenge is to separate the aluminum from other pieces of scrap. A high-powered magnet rotates all the metal. The less magnetic aluminum rolls off, while iron sticks to the drum until it's moved over to its own bin. From here, they take the iron to its own smelter for recycling, while the clean aluminum heads to the furnace. Inside, gas-fired ovens heat the metal to temperatures up to 1,000 degrees. In just 4 minutes, each 450 kilograms of scrap is an aluminum bath. Workers pour the liquid metal into 550 kilogram molds or 10 kilogram ingots. They'll make 5,000 to 6,000 of these high-grade metal bars from Aero Turbine's Jumbo and reclaim a total of $30,000. The mechanics have now gone inside, outside, and up high to salvage valuable airplane parts. Now, for the first time, they look below. 5 sets of landing gear extend from the plane's belly and wings. They must be removed, but the question is how. They must still keep the plane up and balanced. But with so many components removed, the 747's balance is already off. Roger has a solution. He decides to cut off the tail. He calculates this should stabilize the CG, or center of gravity. Julio's shears can tear through 5-centimeter thick steel with one bite. And the mechanical jaws can open wide enough to crunch a ½ meter at a time. Julio makes an incision all the way around the tail. Then, it drops to the ground. They stabilize the rest of the plane with 2 types of jacks. Metal ones, which will be spared, and disposable supports made from wooden railway ties. Sledgehammers wedge the beams in as tight as possible. But some beams are rotted, and others not as solid as they'd hoped. No one knows how well they'll hold under the 747's enormous weight.
You got to make sure everything is level. You don't want these to start teetering, because if it's not level, and it's all it's going to do is start breaking its way down.
With all the supports firmly in place, the team has temporary peace of mind to remove the landing gear. The mechanics get to work removing the giant bolts, but it's not easy.
Down slow.
The weight of the plane is on those bolts, so they must lift and push from above, below, and inside until those bolts have no pressure on them at all. Only then can they be undone. It's a grueling process. But in 2 days, all the landing gear is out. Each set will be resold for a total of $50,000. The fuselage now rests solely on its jacks. Julio and his two colleagues now move into the plane. With the tail off, they essentially have one big door for removing different recyclables.
We separate everything. We separate the wire, the insulation, and the aluminum.
The 747's passenger cabin was more than double the size of any of its contemporaries when it was built in 1968. It stretches 6 meters across and encloses 850 cubic meters. The length of the Wright brothers' first flight in 1903 could have been performed within the economy section. Once they've removed the inside of this plane, they even strip the 452 seats and set the metal aside for recycling. What's left of the fuselage looks ready to scrap, but not so fast. A serious safety hazard hides in the tail.
I need this move.
Super heavy counterweights made of depleted uranium. In flight, they help stabilize the aircraft, but if they are not carefully removed, they could become radioactive.
You gotta leave enough room around the uranium because it's fine. It's non-radioactive until you cut across it, and with the heat, it'll make it radioactive.
Environmental Health and Safety Manager Anne-Marie Stilson will send the depleted uranium to a licensed handler.
It's the good eco-conscious way to get rid of it, as opposed to just throwing it in scrap metal pile. This is smelted down, and if it did get smelted down, it would cause radioactive activity, and it could get pretty serious.
Another serious hazard may still sit in the giant fuel tanks.
Want me to hand it up to you, I will.
They can hold 193,000 liters and must be completely empty of liquid and gas before scrapping begins. There is only one way to know for sure if they're clear. Crawl inside. It's a tight squeeze. But once inside, the size of the 747 tanks is a welcome surprise.
These 47s are far roomier than what these guys are used to inside our tanks. You can stand in there.
A 188-centimeter tall mechanic Lyle walks through the tanks with ease.
I'm in here checking out the levels inside the tank here with our sniffer that we have, checking the oxygen levels and the CO2 levels.
When Julio crushes this tank later in the demolition, sparks are bound to fly. Any residual fuel or fumes could cause an explosion. But after careful inspection,
when there's no fuel in here, it's dry.
Lyle gives it the all clear. What remains of the jumbo is now set to be crunched.
Pete, you gonna do that one?
This is a grand finale with a perilous edge. The mechanics must get their metal jacks out of the way one at a time. Soon, only the makeshift wooden jacks will support the aircraft, but they may not hold for more than a few seconds.
I'm going to loosen these jacks and pull it out real quick. Well, I'm basically going to let the air out and run because I don't know if it's going to fall or what it's going to do, so. Go. Good to go. Take it all the way.
With less and less support, the aircraft will come crashing down at any moment.
Yeah, it's going to be a good show no matter how it goes.
Each jack released makes the plane less stable. It is the most delicate procedure and extremely dangerous.
Go, 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 go. Come on. Come on, come on. Let's go, let's go.
The metal of this old jumbo buckles as it settles on the makeshift towers. But it doesn't fall. The railway ties creak, groan, and splinter, but the wooden beams hold. The crew that spent the past 12 weeks pulling apart and recycling this plane can stand back and watch at a safe distance.
Awesome. That's awesome. I didn't think the shearing would hold that long. That did better than we expected.
But it must come down for workers to get underway with the next stage of recycling. So, Julio Estrada moves in with his powerful hydraulic claw. And finally, now Julio's blade rips into the 747 like a hungry carnivore. The crunching process may look haphazard, but there's a method to the destruction.
He does have an art. I can watch what he does, and there's a purpose to what he's doing, but that's his specialty. Once the aircraft is on the pad, he's in command.
Julio wants all metal and little else. He smashes out all the windows. Next, he slices through the length of the entire fuselage. Then flips over the top like it's a hard-boiled egg. As he guts and plucks from the center of the plane, he separates metals into different piles of aluminum, steel, wire, and copper. The mechanics who labored on this 747 teardown over the past 12 weeks stand and watch the remains reduced to scrap.
Kind of felt good to mess it up. I usually fix them, you know?
Good airplane. Hated to see it go. All aircraft are different. All have their personalities, just like your car. There's been airplanes that I've worked on over my years in this business that I would like to see crushed. So.
It takes Julio 8 days to complete the job, 4 times longer than a standard-sized aircraft. The once massive jet has been reduced to a 6-meter by 6-meter pile of junk. The price for this scrap metal? $30,000. That makes a grand total value of $6.8 million in recycled parts. Not bad for an old plane. For the owners, it's a jumbo-sized paycheck. This crew of mechanics faced their first 747 teardown and their biggest challenge ever.
Be careful, Lyle.
The engines they removed are already on another aircraft. Thousands of parts, small and large, are on their way back to service. The metal heads for meltdown. They took away the waste and hazardous material, and no one was hurt. This 747 hit retirement at 24 years old. But these mechanics have proven that with proper recycling, old aircraft never have to die. Their parts can take to the skies for years to come.